Welcome to my segment on determining audience. The first thing you need to understand about audience is how very key the audience is to a writer. You see, a writer isn't writing published articles just for themselves. No, they're writing for someone to read. They have a message, and they want it out there for the world to see. But that doesn't mean they can write for the world. That's too broad of an audience. It would leave the author unsure of tone and facts and even exact language that would be needed to convey their message to their audience. Authors actually have to narrow down their target audience if they want to reach a more global audience. Sound counterproductive? It might sound that way, but I can promise you that it does work. If you can think of that one person who desperately needs to be convinced of something, let's say the importance of recycling, you have a better idea of what they already know and what they're going to say in opposition to you. This gives you an upper edge as a writer. If you already know what they know, then you already know where their knowledge is lacking and needs more information. And if you already know what they're going to say in opposition, then you already know what points you need to learn more about in order to support your own stance. And while you're doing all of this for that one person, you're really writing for everyone else just like them, and those who might be mildly curious about the topic. So while the author might be writing with that one person in mind, they're writing a clearer message, which means that they're going to reach more people. As a prime example, I'd like to share with you M.K. Asante. M.K. Asante is an author. He's the author of the memoir Buck. And it's clear from the memoir's style, language, and tone that he did not write the piece with someone like me in mind as a reader. He wrote the memoir with someone like himself in mind when he was younger, as a way to reach the next generation of struggling inner city minority young male students. However, because he was so clear about who his audience was, he wrote something that someone like me, a middle-aged, country and farm living born and raised Caucasian female could understand and appreciate for what it is, which is a beautiful depiction of life in the inner city surrounded by gang violence and subpar educational access. I am the complete opposite of the target audience that this master author had in mind. But because he was so clear about who he intended to write the memoir for, it became accessible to a broader and more global audience. By the way, if you're not offended by graphic content, this is really an amazing read, and I do highly recommend it. So we've talked a little bit about what it means to find the perfect audience by envisioning that one person. But what if you don't have that luxury? Or what if you're attempting to discover the intended audience for another author's published piece? For this, we're going to examine the following demographics for audience: publication location, audience age, audience gender, audience location, and audience specialty. The first of these is publication location. Just the location of the article's publication can tell you about the audience. You aren't going to have the same kind of reader for Us Weekly that you would for the New York Times. And your readership between English literature academic journals and Technology Today are two very different audience types. Whether you're seeking publication for yourself or examining someone else's, just understanding this one aspect can tell you a lot about the audience and the type of writing that will take place in order for the piece to be published. The next item is age, and the age of the audience does matter. The reason it is important to understand your target audience's age is because this can influence how a piece is written. For example, if you're writing about technology for the generation currently in their 60s, you might need to explain more terminology than if you were writing for someone in their 20s. And more to the point, you wouldn't use the same level of academic language that you would with a group of 20 and above adults as you would with 12-year-olds who are still in middle school. The gender of an audience can matter too. Let's face it, you aren't going to write a piece to help a mom coping through a hard pregnancy for a men's magazine. Just like you wouldn't write a heterosexual romance story for an LGBTQ plus audience. The piece that you would be writing just wouldn't match up with the audience type. The point is that it really is important to understand your audience so that you're writing the content that fits the demographics of the group you want to reach. For some pieces, the sheer location and understanding of a location can matter. There are key terms of phrase that are unique to different locations. In New England, instead of turning left while driving, you bang a left. In the South, it is respectful for children to call adults sir and ma'am. However, in certain areas of California, this could get a student suspended. I know because it happened to a friend's child right after they moved out of the South and into California. The children had no idea that what they were doing was wrong. To them, it was respectful and normal. And the teacher was livid, thinking that the children were trying to imply she was old, when really it was a miscommunication due to regional context. So, audience location can matter. The last one I'd like to touch on for now is audience specialty, also known as audience expertise. This goes back to the difference between the English academic journal and the technology publication. Each of these fields has their own content language that would be used. You wouldn't have to explain RAM and ROM to the technology group, but you might have to spell it out for those of us with our noses in a good old-fashioned print book. Just like the English majors don't need in-depth explanations of sentence structures and the difference between clauses and phrases, but you might lose the IT student if you don't give them some more information. The point is that each of these aspects of the audience does play into how an author presents their message. Understanding this puts you one step closer to analyzing another author's work or successfully completing one of your own. I hope you found this helpful. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, don't hesitate to reach out using that email icon in your learning management system, and I'll catch you on the flip side.